Hey folks, welcome to a very special episode of Cordkiller in Time. It's our holiday special, The Killies, Brian Brushwood.
Huzzah! This is where we murder shows. Actually, we do. We do send one to the.
We do send shows to the
graveyard.
Yeah.
Hello, Bryce Castillo,
Hi.
producer extraordinaire.
Hi, everybody.
So we have all made a list of shows from 2017 that are our favorite, and they are awarded our own award show mascot, the Killies. We don't know what the Killie looks like.
We don't know.
I like to think just an insane person with a murderous set of grandma shears. And he's just like looking for a cord to cut.
Maybe it should be bloody scissors.
Yeah, well, not bloody, but covered in the juice of internet bandwidth.
Internet juice.
Man,
That's
of
better
all
than
the
blood?
internet juices, I'm going to take blood first.
Take blood juice.
Yeah, that did not turn out the way I thought. No, but the Killies mean mostly shows that killed it, movies that killed it. It will also mean a couple that we think should be killed.
Yeah, the Abandies, I believe we called them last year.
Yeah.
So
left
Brian,
behind.
what's your first pick?
Man, you know what? I'm going to go for my pick, which I took a look, and I don't think I saw it on either of your list. I might be wrong, but a lot of people at the end of the year, they're given their best ofs for movies and television shows, and they're forgetting that a certain movie came out in 2017, and I'll be damned if it's not the very best comic book movie ever made, Logan. From beginning to end, cried 3 times during the movie. It portrayed a very near, very believable future. It managed to make mutants feel exotic but not extraordinary.
Yeah.
It managed to hit on all 4 quadrants. You know, Logan discovers he's a father, and his father figure is dying. We get a peek into a universe and a credible threat to mutant existence. It's a movie that has kids, but I'm terrified of them.
Yeah.
And they never are cheesy. They're never silly. It is a masterpiece of direction and by the numbers storytelling. It is the best movie of 2017 and the best comic book movie of all time. Full stop.
And it's for being a comic book movie, I think it does the best job generally of not needing to go in knowing something or needing to like find all the connections between, this was like in this series, this was like in the last movie. It's like, no, it's a Wolverine movie that you can watch on its own and you don't have to care about a cinematic universe or even just like dumb action movie roller coaster plot holes. Like it is a solid
You don't
drama.
even need to know of the existence of the X-Men franchise or of any of the Marvel universe. Like
It doesn't hurt. There's a couple of nice little tidbits for you if you do, but you will not miss them at all, and they're not essential if you don't.
In fact,
it's just a good movie.
As an experience, if you want to do me a favor, if you are somebody listening right now who has never watched or had any interest or paid any attention to any of the Marvel movies or even superhero movies in general, as an experiment, because between the lines, spoiler alert, it's a straight up Western. It's essentially a retelling of the Western Shane in the 21st, late
It's a
21st
Western,
century.
although it's not cowboys and Indians, and it's not in the Old West.
Yeah, well,
but
I mean,
otherwise,
tell me if this sounds like a Western. Somebody is living south of the border and needs to get up to Montana, South Dakota, with some contraband while the man's hunting them down. I mean,
it made me take a sip of bourbon when you're talking like that.
do me a favor, give it a try and write us at cordkillers@gmail.com with your experience, because I think you're going to like it. You probably won't love it the way I did, because so much of it was exactly tailored to my existence, but I think you'll like it quite a bit.
Well, if we're talking about movies, I've got a movie pick, which is at the top of my list. This came out much earlier this year, and I think it's incredible for just how thoughtful it is and how sort of intricate and detailed it is in various ways, and that is Get Out. Get Out is so good. It's like it's partially a horror movie, but it's also part thriller.
I mean, it's a
part...
Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
It's a really good 80-minute long Twilight Zone episode.
Sure, yeah, and it's about a black guy who's got a white girlfriend, and they go to her parents' house for what is it, Thanksgiving or some vacation, and is initially wrestling with the balance of like, is this just people having weird race relations, or what is they're acting really weird? And then horror movie things ensue, and from the beginning to the very end of that movie, it is incredibly considered in its symbology, and it really subverts your expectations of what you think is going to happen in really a masterful piece of cinema.
If you can see this movie without looking at a single preview, because being a very, very small independent production, they had to, you roll the marketing dice, and they decide to make the play to essentially tell you
away the entire
plot of the movie.
Go see trailers. So just go see it. It's on HBO now. Right now, you'll be able to rent it and whatnot. Also,
oh sure,
I had the luck of being able to see it before I knew anything about it, other than the director. And knowing that it was supposed to be a horror film by him, I knew, like, okay, it might be funny, but it's obviously not a comedy. And I was blown away not knowing anything about it. So I cannot recommend enough. Don't find anything else out about it than what we've told you here.
It's not like it's not very gory and bloody, which I think is what
it's
turns a lot of people off.
suspenseful. It's more like a suspense thriller.
Yeah. So if you're super squeamish, if blood and guts are not your thing, like you do not need to worry about that.
I'll say this: out of every movie I saw this year, including the new Star Wars movie, never have I heard audiences react the way they did at Get Out. Like, there's a moment of villainry that just, you could feel the seething hatred in the room as people were muttering under their breaths. It was a lot of fun to see like that.
What do you got, Tom?
Okay, I stuck to TV shows for the most part, because my list was just getting way too long, and trying to prioritize like apples and oranges, movies and TV shows, was messing with my head. So I picked one movie. If you have to see one movie this year, and I hesitate to say that because, goddamn, if Logan and Get Out aren't amazing movies, and you should see them too. But the one movie that I think has moved me and stuck with me more than any of these is The Shape of Water.
Wow. I'm so glad to hear this, because when I was looking at your list, you had The Shape of Water separate from all the others, and I was afraid that was your Abandie. And I was like, oh
no! This movie just keeps popping up in my brain when I'm not expecting it.
Really?
I'm like thinking about it and thinking about the implications of it. And if you don't know what it is Guillermo del Toro. It is about a deaf woman who works deaf and mute, right?
Wait, no. Don't they deliberately...
Oh, sorry, she's not deaf. She's just mute.
Right.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Mute woman who works in a government facility cleaning up. She's on the janitorial staff. It's in a sort of 50s era situation. She lives alone in a boarding house, sort of checks in on her neighbor and has a relationship with him, but it's not a sexual thing or anything, and you'll find out why. But at work, she is cleaning up and is exposed to the fact that this government facility is hiding a creature from the Black Lagoon, essentially, and treating it ill. And she is able to communicate with it because it doesn't speak English, and she can't speak English either because she's mute, and is able to then, and this is spoilery, so I guess if you really want to be pure, don't listen to me, but I don't think it ruins the movie at all. She decides that she needs to free this creature.
I think that's pretty heavily implied from the trailers.
In the trailer.
I haven't seen that.
Spoiler time
but she feels she needs to free this creature because she understands it and she empathizes with it. And the journey she goes on as a person who is having a hard time in this world, who's underestimated, and reaching out to another creature, another living thing, and they have a bond that happens. Just incredible. And there's so many little pieces of this movie that I can't even go into that are subtly intricate and feed into each other. And as a whole, maybe you'll see weaknesses. I couldn't see weaknesses in this story. It just held together so well.
From what I hear, the design work on the creature is phenomenal. I was reading a Wired article talking about how they intentionally built the furrows of the brow very angular and to look angry, but then the lines they painted on it were made to look sad. So they were able to change the lighting to convey different emotions, even though it's the same solid mask and so on. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my, if you see one movie this holiday season,
I don't think anything else I have is a movie. No, I guess we want to wrap up movies and then go into TV because I did put a second movie as a must-see. If you are a fan of the superhero movies, I don't think you'll do much better than Thor Ragnarok. It was delightful and funny, made me instantly forget Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which would have been a big pick. It's the delight. It, much like the new Star Wars movie, reminded me of the novels, getting to explore new territory and new set pieces. Thor Ragnarok reminded me of the outrageous graphic novels. For example, they have one where the Hulk teams up with the Thing, and they go to an alien world to rescue a MacGuffin, and they get one wish apiece at the end, and Ben Grimm, the Thing, is thinking like, oh man, do I wish to become human? Well, that one's a given. What else? What do I do with the second wish? And before he could speak, Hulk says, "We want food and want to go home." And then you turn the page, and the last panel is him sitting on a mountain of hamburgers in the desert, and the Thing losing his mind. It reminded me of those Marvel stories from the late '80s, early '90s, and I just loved it. Loved every second
and a really
of it.
good use of movie specific characters from Hela and Jeff Goldblum's character, the Grandmaster or something.
Yeah,
like they both get maybe not as much screen time as they deserve, but both of them are very good characters,
very iconic, very memorable. Yeah. They stick with you for sure.
Yeah. I've got if we're gonna wrap up movies, this is recent. This is still in the movie theaters. It is Disney Pixar's Coco. Yes. It is incredible. You can go and take.
Did you ever watch it, Tom?
I'm a bad person.
Oh, Tom, it's delightful.
It's the curse of being married to someone working for Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I've seen all of these movies in preview. I've seen The Greatest Showman, which is actually I really liked. I've seen Ferdinand, which I really did not like, because it's like, hey, I need to see this. Do you want to come with me? And one of the things I love to do is see movies with my wife, which means I've had less time to see Coco, and I really want to see Coco because I hear it's amazing.
Coco's really so special. It's about a young boy in Mexico whose family, because of what happened to his great grandmother, a family tradition becomes that music is not allowed in the family, full stop. Except he really loves playing guitar and singing, and so he tries to discover his own lineage and have music be a part of his life, and ends up on a trip to the underworld, or to the land of the dead, and goes on a very fun, fantastical journey in the land of the dead. And what's great is that it is a semi-musical. Its use of music is both totally diegetic and very appropriate, and the performances are great, and the story structure is wonderful. It really there's a turn in the movie that completely shocked me, and I should have seen it coming a mile away, but it's great. And it made me cry so bad at the end. and for you would be correct in being worried about any movie made in America Americanizing Mexican tradition, and Coco definitely doesn't do that. It's not a zombie movie. No one it gives you a basic understanding of
there's not some big character in the land of the underworld be like, and if we crack this blue gem, the dead can come back to the living land.
Right. No, it takes the traditions we have, the traditions that exist, and it extrapolates those in quote unquote realistic ways to the land of the dead, and for a Pixar movie, it is it's massive. The scale and the technique, just visually, it is overflowing with details and just there's the bridge that they walk on to get to the back and forth between the land of the dead and the land of the living. It's this beautiful flowing bridge of leaves, these orange leaves, and it's gorgeous. And it's little details like that. It's so great. And they have ended the run of Frozen Olaf's big whatever short.
That's why I haven't seen it. I was waiting for them to get rid of that.
They're saying it was always scheduled to end, but in any case, please go see Coco. It is a very good time for the whole family, and I've talked to other people and other friends who've seen it, and it's as someone of Mexican heritage, it's very powerful, the things that they get right.
Yeah. Honorable mentions. I just want to throw a couple out there. Blade Runner was very good,
incredibly good,
and Split. If you are somebody who enjoyed, my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie is Unbreakable, and if you liked Unbreakable and you wonder if M. Night Shyamalan still has the goods to make a movie like Unbreakable, go see Split, and I think you'll enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah.
All right. I'll kick off our TV rounds then, and I'll just get Game of Thrones off the board. Game of Thrones this year brought me back to Game of Thrones, and I don't mean that I ever left Game of Thrones, but it felt like season 1 again in anticipation. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that we're in entirely uncharted territory now. But just the compelling battles, the compelling scenes, maybe the fact that they did fewer episodes meant that the pace was a little better and a little less draggy, and they kept pushing through. But my wife and I did nothing but talk about Game of Thrones on Sundays. From the minute we got up, we were watching Secrets of the Citadel. We were all into the theories of what was going to happen. There's still a one of those Funko Pops of Draco, or the dragon,
Drogon.
Not Draco, Drogon the dragon, sitting on our coffee table because he was watching them with us the whole time. Like we were so into it. This season in a way that we've always been fans of the show, and we've always not missed it on Sunday and watched it immediately when it came out. But it went back to earning being the best show on television this year in a way that I didn't feel it necessarily needed to, but it did it anyway for me.
And I don't know what it's like to watch the shows not having read the books, or if you haven't read the books, because I had, but it just feels like at this point, and I don't know if it's because of the mystery or because the actual pacing of the show has changed, but it just feels like everything is speeding up so fast, and every moment is a treasure and a surprise around every corner. It's like it's dessert. We're now in the dessert phase.
Like it's weird that you probably wouldn't have ever had the complaint in previous seasons that things are happening too fast, and I think that's the only misstep of. There is a lot of time compression happening sometimes,
and it's not clear. They haven't spelled out any way for us to really know
that time
what's
is
happening.
Traveling. That's tough. But the result is that we are getting bigger action scenes more often, and if this is if this next half season is supposed to be the kit and caboodle, then this season is a very good omen of what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to be waiting a long time, but I think it's going to be worth it.
That's right. Brian, what do you got?
Man, one of the things that we like to do in the Killies is think not just in terms of objective quality, but also the stickiness of certain stories. And I got to tell you, HBO really landed a hit with The Young Pope. It was so peculiar. It was so strange. It was so off. It broke so many rules of conventional storytelling. And it took a while to realize, much like Atlanta began, and I thought, this is going to be a dramedy about this guy's life, and everything's going to go in order. And it took 4 or 5 episodes for me to realize, no, these are just vignettes. You're getting isolated individual stories about one person's life.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get to that point to realize that the young pope was not House of Cards in the Vatican, because that's the Borgias. It was a similar thing. You were getting isolated vignettes of a very complicated, very conflicted individual who at times may seem like he's faithless, but instead, cares so much about his faith that every shred of doubt sends him into agony.
Yeah.
He's maybe not a good person, maybe the best person. Can't tell. I enjoyed it for trying to do something very, very different, and I liked it.
It's one of those things where I don't know much about the papacy, but that dude's a fish out of water, and he's in the highest seat of the church, and it's interesting seeing someone. It's an interesting power trip to see someone with the silhouette of a dictator.
Yes. Yes.
Even though he is a much more complicated character than that, to see like just the raw power he decides to wield as the Pope is
in seemingly strange ways, some of which pay off, some of which do not.
Don't. Yeah. And I think The Young Pope is great. Supposedly, we're getting a sequel series called,
like a down the road.
I think it's like the new Pope or the old Pope or something. It's really weird how they're trying to frame
the not so young anymore Pope.
Right. It's great. And we did spoiler times for The Young Pope.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So you can listen to all those.
Check that out.
Go check them out. I have to say, as someone raised very Catholic, who's been to the Vatican, who's a student of history and understands the place of the papacy in European history, I love that Bryce is like, I don't really know much about the Pope, but man, this is cool, because there's so many things in there that you're like, they're just throwing off references to Pius X and Vatican II, and like I'm just sitting here like, holy no, they're doing that. What he's gonna go back to that? No, you can't do that. You can't. Wow. And it's so fun on that level. And then, yes, it does feel like it's just an interesting character study and exercise in dictatorship. And I think that's the brilliance of that show.
My show of, I guess it's my show of the year. One of my shows of the year.
I didn't know we were picking shows of the year.
No, we're not.
Okay.
We're starting TV shows, and I want to start off strong. And for me, it's going to be the show that I've watched multiple times this year. And that's Netflix's American Vandal.
Oh, and I
still haven't finished
I still haven't finished it, but the first 3 episodes, I was like, this stuff is note perfect. Yeah. It starts off looking like, this is going to be a hilarious episode parody of the true crime genre that we see.
But it's not.
It's not.
It is a 10-episode, very real mystery that is very funny to watch.
Just with a strangely hilarious MacGuffin. Like instead of a murder, it's just a ridiculous crime.
Right. So a high schooler is accused and expelled after 30 some penises are spray painted on all of the cars in the faculty parking lot on an administrative day. And because the footage is lost and there's an eyewitness at the scene who ties him there, Peter, one of the main characters of the story, is creating this doc to try to find the truth of who, quote unquote, who drew the dicks.
Yep.
And it starts off funny because it's a note perfect true life or true crime story and aesthetic, but it really is a mystery. And by the end of the series, they offer a very compelling, one of many compelling perspectives and viewpoints, but it also raises a very good argument about the nature of true crime and current crime shows.
There is a bit of what's the paradox?
Richard Simmons?
No.
S-Town?
No.
The Richard Simmons paradox?
God dang it. Heisenberg principle. Wow, I can't accept.
Uncertainty principle. Okay. Yeah.
I was thinking Heisenberg. You went with Richard Simmons. It's fine.
Uncertainty principle is about weight.
Totally no. But you're right. Because it's the Heisenberg principle. It's like the very act of observing a thing affects the thing. And that was true of the Richard Simmons podcast thing. That was true of Serial. That was, I think that's a good thing to explore.
Yeah. And as American Vandal partway through deals with the fact of making a documentary about an investigation that is happening in real time in the show, it raises real questions about, what what is the journalistic impetus on a documentary creator when something's not solved or when they haven't finished telling their story and X, Y, or Z is not important. I think it's very funny, and it will also make you question true crime media.
Man, this is great. I can't wait.
Please finish it.
Yeah, also, no, I will.
Also, at the end, there's one joke that is like, they're all like unspoken jokes, but there's one joke at the very end that just slips by very quietly.
Is it like that car in Atlanta?
No, that's very visible. There's just one little thing that you hear it and you're like, no, that's stupid. That's so stupid. So just please check out American Vandal on
Okay,
Netflix.
I will.
Tom, what do you got?
I am the older member of this staff. Yeah, Bryce is hip. Okay. You know, Brian's clever and hip. So I've got to represent the older generation, the greater generation here. Not great-ass, but broadcast television can still bring it sometimes.
Sure.
And sometimes it's drama. And This Is Us. I know in passing I mentioned it on Cordkillers. I'm watching This Is Us and I'm liking This Is Us. I never expected that I would like a family drama from broadcast television as much as I like this show. This show is insane. It's incredible. If it was on Netflix or Amazon, I think it would be getting a lot more hype in certain sectors than it does, because it's all about character. And the setup is we're going to tell the story in multiple timelines. Some of it's going to take place in the 70s. Some of it's going to take place in the 80s. Some of it's going to take place now. We've got multiple casts. So you see kids as little kids, and then we see what they grow up to be. And the central conceit is that a couple are expecting triplets at the very beginning. Now, I want desperately to tell you more about what happens and why.
Right.
But if you are going to watch it, you don't want to know that.
Yeah.
Because one of the geniuses, especially of season 1, is they're masters of the twist. They're masters of leading you to think, oh, it's going to be like this. Mm-hmm. And then, no, it's like this. And you didn't know why. And they do it over and over and over again. And I keep thinking, okay, I'm onto your game. I know what you're going to do. And then they'll turn it again. Yeah. And you'll realize, oh, that's not somebody's child after all. Oh, that person's actually dead. Oh, wait. And they do it in ways like, I've been around the block. I've seen a couple TV shows. I'm usually good at predicting this stuff, and they're very good at subverting those expectations. Of course, saying that probably makes you look for the seams a little more. So I don't know how that affects things, but I love what they did with this. And I love how they're just basically telling the story of family, of aging, of raising children, of adoption, of foster care, of so many different issues around a family, and they're just telling them really well, and it's great performances from the actors. So, you know, I'm not saying This Is Us is something that everybody has to watch, but it is a very well done show. And if you think like, oh, you know, like a really well done family drama I'd be into, I've seen so many bad ones. This is the one. This is Us.
Last holidays, after we recorded the Killies, one of the shows me and my family ended up binging on over the vacation was This Is Us. And it's you're right, Tom. It's really great about twists, but it's not so frantic. Like
it's not gimmicky.
Yeah. Right. It's heart. It's just the right mix of like heartwarming and dramatic and emotional, while also keeping an air of lightness to it. And I think that This Is Us is a fantastic family piece.
So I feel like I want to bring another heavy hitter in.
Okay.
It feels like what we're all gearing towards is telling stories about shows that maybe a lot of people haven't discovered and don't realize that they are among, if not our very favorites. Because I'm seeing we're sort of skipping over a lot of usual suspects. I can't decide which one I love more. So let me just bang out two of these because I know these are both shared. One of these was on Bryce's list. One of these was on Tom's list.
Okay.
So let's fight it out. Which is better, Legion or Ozark?
Ooh.
And I've seen 4 episodes of Ozark. I haven't finished it yet, and it's not for lack of wanting or lack of liking. It's just scheduling.
I think Legion. I think Legion is. I think if we're comparing season for season, I think Legion's better, but I think Ozark is building up a longer story. Ozark is definitely slower and more atmospheric than Legion is, but I think Legion does a very good job of being both cerebral and like actiony.
Yeah.
You know,
so,
where Ozark has really hot action moments.
Even though I haven't finished it, I'm tempted to pick Ozark because I'm like, this is brain stuff in a region that I spent a lot of time in as a kid, and they get it right.
So tell us.
So I'm like, they're authentic to the area, where at the same time, like showing a really psychological depiction of something real. Like this could really happen. Whereas Legion is like, well, it's not really going to happen. We're not really going to get mutants. But at the same time, then I think about it. I'm like, but if we could, that's how it would happen. Because this is brain stuff. This is like, if this were true, this is how this would play out, and we're going to be real about it, and we're going to deeply psychologically manipulate you. So, man, that's a tough choice.
Well, and here's the other thing is Ozark, and if you're not familiar, Ozark is a Netflix original starring Jason Bateman in a weird, bizarro version of the character he played in Arrested Development.
A little bit, yeah.
He's sort of the moral center, but he is fairly moral, but you find out he has a very immoral job and knows that he's laundering money for the cartel, and he finds himself in an increasingly sticky situation, making increasingly desperate moves. It hit full force in the part of my brain that is reserved for The Shield. If you liked The Shield, you will love Ozark. Because it is just Jason Bateman as Vic Mackey, with just the silver tongue saying just the right stuff, not to get him out of trouble, but just to get him out
Keep
of
him alive.
this moment of trouble.
Well, and the brilliance is if the thing that turned you off of The Shield was Vic Mackey, if you looked at him and was like, I just don't like that guy, I don't care.
Imagine if you just really loved him, and you felt empathy for him, and you were there.
And there's a very like complicated cast of characters between the family that has to very literally deal with the fact that because of what happens in the inciting action, that they move down to the Ozarks, and that they know very well that his dad is money laundering, and that his wife very much like doesn't want to be in this game, but kind of has to play it.
Well, and they all for very good reasons that become apparent in the pilot. Like they're all in it, and there's no getting out of it.
Right.
Now on the flip side, I think I'm gonna say Legion is my favorite because I've never seen anything like Legion. I have never ever seen anything on television like Legion before.
It's totally different than any superhero show on TV.
Well, and it doesn't even start. What's great is I recommended it to someone and didn't tell him it was superhero themed or in that universe or anything.
Right.
It was like Legion. I saw the cover art. It looked like some kind of devil worshipping thing. And I was like, oh, no. You have a delicious surprise because it opens with a charming Wes Anderson style love story. I got goosebumps thinking about it. Legion is the best show of 2017.
Wow.
It's like, Legion is fantastic in getting you into situations without a lot of fluff. Like it is a pretty dense show in terms of actions and set pieces, I feel like. Yeah. Like you get in, and even when you're revisiting, if they're using the same scenes or situations again, they're turning them on their head so that the dynamics and the characters that are in them are in totally different situations than when they were initially.
Yeah, no, it moves. The show that you see in episode 1 is not the show you see in 3. It's not the show you see in 5, and yet you don't think it's like jarring. Yeah. You don't realize it's happening.
I have rewatched the pilot 4, maybe 5 times now, and every single time pick up more and more details that are foreshadowed. It is a mastercraft of setting stuff up from the very beginning that pay off way down the road. It's charming, delightful, strange, terrifying, and just the most bizarre, wonderful piece of the Marvel empire.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it next season, and who all. What sort of screen time balance there is between the various
They build up an impressive cast of characters. I mean, like each of these characters start off as one dimensions, but you don't think of it as an ensemble show until you get to the end and you realize that you know so many delightful quirks about all of these characters and they mean something to you.
I think it kind of goes a little understated, but the styling and trying to give it a very deliberate 60s styling, while trying to take everything else in a timeless way lands surprisingly well.
I agree.
Where it's kind of almost disorienting if you try to think about it for too long of like, what time period is this really?
And then you're like, and then you start to think like, wait, is this even Earth? I mean, what is happening? You know,
you're like, is this Mad Men? But they did that, but it doesn't seem out of place, but it could be. But no, it's pretty great.
This year, I was looking over the things that I've seen and watched a lot of this year, and it was a lot of Netflix and it was a lot of Hulu, you know, watching a lot of stuff online and originals. But I think probably the thing that I spent the most time watching and would just, not unconsciously, but like I felt maybe habitually going back to was YouTube. And so I wanted to give one slot to 2 YouTube channels that I spent a lot of time with and I think people might like. The first one is Super Mega, which is like a video gaming Let's Play channel. And it's like in those sorts of situations, you need like you need personalities because you can watch anybody play any video game for any reason. And the thing that will bring you back to those sorts of outlets is the personalities and the relationship that happens between those the people who are on it. And I think Super Mega has a really good dynamic that I personally feel good about. I had a couple of come to Jesus moments this year of like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with X, Y, or Z. And when all of the dust cleared on that, like Super Mega was kind of the one that was like, it's raunchy, but it's like I feel good about it. And I don't know, it's I think it's really good. The other one really quickly is William Osman, Osman. He is a maker sort of channel. He does a lot of wacky. He I don't know. One of the videos I saw today was like, hey, could you laser cut a pumpkin? I've got a homemade laser. Could you homemade laser a pumpkin? And he tests it out and he tries it. You know, could you make an explosive or a rocket out of candy? And he does it. And he tries out different types of candies and stuff. And that's another thing where it's like very personality driven, and he is able to carry an entire video by himself. Along with very snappy, very fun editing, where the videos are about 10 minutes less usually. Unfortunately, the reason I found out about him is because a video of his was on the front page of Reddit where his house burned down. There's a very weird experience of like, I found out about him because of this thing. And so now I'm going through all of his old videos of a house that no longer exists with his homemade laser that no longer exists.
This is, I think, part of the appeal of YouTube is the same thing as the appeal to professional wrestling, is like the narrative bleeds out into reality and vice versa.
Yeah. No, totally. So I feel like I should pick Modern Rogue then after that. But.
Yeah, and I'll pick Red Letter Media. I'll throw them in there as well. My next one is a show that the biggest selling point of it that I can say is that I desperately want them to make more of them, but I don't want them to make more of them. And the reason is because they take such care and thought into making their show that I don't want them to rush it. I don't want them to make it until they're ready to make it. And the fact that they're like, I don't even know if we'll ever make a season 3, both breaks my heart. But I'm like, man, until you're ready to make season 3, don't do it. Like, that's what makes this series so good. And I'm talking about Master of None, because I loved season 1. It was funny. It went places that were great, as far as immigrant humor and cultural commentary. Season 2 blew season 1 away. And the reason it blew it away, from what I can tell, is that Aziz Ansari decided, you know what I want to do? I want to go to Italy and learn how to make pasta. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to write that into the end of Master of None. Then I'm going to actually go to Italy and live there for a year and not make the next season of Master of None. And I'll pick up jobs or whatever. But I'm going to do this. And then when I feel inspired, then I'm going to write season 2 of Master of None about what I've learned
while I was in Italy learning to make pasta, and it's insane. It's so good. It's even better than season 1. It doesn't even have as much of a story, but you don't care. They do a like Italian film tribute early on because it starts in Italy. They have actual situations from his real experience where he and his friend, who plays his friend in the show, got stuck in a car trying to go through this small alley in a small Italian town. And you can go online and find pictures of what actually happened, and they pretty much like recreate it in an episode of Master of None. It's just so real, but not trying to be a documentary, saying like, let me take my real experiences and make them accessible and entertaining for you. And it's just a masterpiece.
Wow. I'm so glad to hear that, because all I heard is like, oh, season 2, it's not the same as season 1. But knowing the context and the way you saw it has me really excited to give it a chance now, because I loved season 1, but that's in that precarious category of I'm not allowed to watch it by myself. That's a with Bonnie thing. So I have to take it to the committee to get it on the agenda.
Oh yeah, no. Eileen went and has watched multiple viewings of seasons 1 and 2 without me because she loves it so much. She's like, I don't care. I'll watch it again with you when it's time. So I hope someday that Aziz gets in the position where he's like, yes, I feel like I have my season 3, because I think it'll be even better.
So I'm going to do another twofer here,
okay?
If that's okay, because of feelings.
Master of the bargain. You should go to scam stuff.
Because of the feelings that they cause. They both touch the same place in my heart.
Yeah.
And it's a dark place that I don't like. They are haunting, both of these. One is from HBO, one is from Hulu. I'm talking about the last season of The Leftovers, which, as far as, if you're going to rank seasons, season 3 was not as good as season 2. Season 2 of The Leftovers might be one of the best second seasons of anything, especially if you grade on a curve for how much better it got over season 1. But there's a darkness and a hollowness and a despair to The Leftovers. The characters are believable and damaged in ways that I just adored, and the acting is superb. And I think on balance, the way they wrapped up The Leftovers worked. If you need an answer, you get a buffet to choose from, and any one of them I'm willing to accept, or all of them. The acting's great. The Handmaid's Tale, I feel even deeper dread. The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu is almost painful to watch, and I would like to believe that this is a story of rebellion and hope, but it does not feel like it at the end of the first season.
It feels the first season is almost like a Westworld-y sort of thing, where it feels a little bit like a prologue.
Yeah,
like it feels like we're about to start something really big, but the prologue is very good.
Oh, unlike Westworld. Well, you know what?
Sure.
Actually, let me take that back.
Asterisks on all of that. Sure,
asterisks, because I did the experiment that I tell people to do. Everyone who binges Westworld says it's great. Everybody watched it week over week, said it was tedious and plodding.
Yeah. So you watched it. You binged it.
I binged The Handmaid's Tale all this week. So as a result, it probably gets that similar kind of upgrade because I was able to keep on moving.
Though I watched Handmaid's Tale mostly week over week, and it holds up.
Oh yeah,
and I think it's partially because Handmaid's Tale has some very gruesome, realistic shocks.
I don't blame you, because like there were some of those that I'm like, I think I'm going to give it a couple days. Let me just sit on that for a bit.
Oh yeah, we watched it in spurts, because Hulu actually released the first 4 at once.
Right.
So we watched that first 4 in a spurt, and then we're like, you know what? I think we need a month to recover from that. So so we didn't keep up even when the new ones came out. Then we watched like another, I think 2, and then we're like, that's enough. That's enough to chew on for a while. Like we did not watch it in real time, but we also didn't watch just one like every week because it was too compelling to want to not watch more than one at a time, because you're like, oh, I need to find out what happens next. But then at a certain point you get full and you're like, I can't deal with that. That's so hard for her.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's hard to watch as in bad television. It means it's hard to watch this character go through this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But by the end you almost feel like the end is like the spark of everything.
Yeah.
And it's like it almost is. It like I think it subverts that a little bit in that it like it's her personal spark, but it really is not.
You know what? I think I'm realizing the reason I clump these together is because The Leftovers is the same way. The first season of The Leftovers is astonishingly tedious, and yet but it's largely character driven and it's largely miserable and nothing much happens, and you feel like the end is where things kick into gear, and yet. Watching that first season made everything else about that show really soar. And I think The Handmaid's Tale will be the exact same way. Season 2, maybe action kicks into gear or whatever, but there's no way it could be as good as if you've seen season 1 before going into it.
Yeah.
Have either of you read the book?
Nope.
Handmaid's Tale?
I have not.
That's interesting because it's been a long time since I read the book, so I'm fuzzy. But the book is just like one long miasma of like, is she ever going to get out of this? And
really?
I was kind of girded for that, like, and prepared for that. And that doesn't mean that your season 2 isn't necessarily going to fulfill on your expectations. I don't want to get spoilery or not.
Sure.
But they're definitely capturing the spirit of the book. They'll leave it at that.
I've got a pick that I spent in terms of just like overall amount of time and spent on it. It's a weird one. It may not be for everyone. It is a show that you can watch on Netflix called Japanese Style Originator. I talked about this a little bit while I was watching it, but it's kind of like how it's made, but in the format of like a Japanese panel show. And so it spends a lot of time focusing on Japanese aesthetics and craftsmanship.
And this is in English.
No, this is subtitled in Japanese.
Got it. Okay.
On Netflix. It spends a lot of time focusing on craftsmanship, and some history stuff and aesthetical design choices that take place. There's one episode that is just all about Japanese gardens and all of the various ins and outs of like, why are bridges like this? Why are they not straight? What's the symbolism of waterfalls? How do you use trees? How do you guide the eye? Like, it takes something that you have a visual idea of, and it says there's actually a lot of history and collective consideration on how these things are made and designed, to the point where, like, if I had, say, visited like a Japanese castle before and after having seen this,
it would have transformed the lens through which you viewed everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally, right? You might think, oh, yeah, this basement has really weird stairs. But one of the things that the show tells you is they have irregularly sized steps in the basements of Japanese castles to trip up invaders.
Wow.
Because they would not be able to have walking rhythm, right?
And there's that really cool thing where people take something that was functional and then turn it into style.
Right. And so I think if that's something that interests you, it's a little BuzzFeedy in times. There's one episode that's like, hey, we ranked all of the best things to top a bowl of rice and then ranked them by how cheap they are.
And you won't believe number 3.
And it's just that. It's just an hour of that. And I think the show still is airing in Japan, but Netflix only has like a dozen or so episodes from 2008. It's a very weird thing, but I think some people are really going to dig it. So that's Japanese Style Originator.
All right. I'm not usually competitive.
Okay.
But I'm going to go for a 3-fer.
Oh, good. Play catch up. Let's do this. Because I just realized that I have one more 2-fer coming up.
God. But you're about to be out.
I'm gonna turn them into my Anglophile picks. 2 of them very obviously related. Victoria, which is ITV show that is airing on PBS in the United States. Second season isn't out yet here. It's been out in the UK. Just a fantastic period piece. Well acted, well told. Feels like you really get an insight into someone who I think we all think of as stodgy, as representative of the Victorian age, where everybody was prudish and repressed, and shows that yes, even her, if that is true, wasn't like that when she was young. She was young once, and this is what it was like. And this is what it was like when she met Prince Albert, who was not Prince Albert in a can, but was actually a real person. And it's just so well done. And weaves in the politics and the issues of the populace at the time. Things like the corn laws, which should be entirely boring, play in compelling ways. And then The Crown on Netflix does the same thing with our current queen, with Queen Elizabeth II.
Does it feel like a sequel in some weird way? Does it feel like a shared
really
universe?
Does. No, it feels like a prequel because I saw The Crown and then I went to watch Victoria and I'm like, oh, it's the same thing. Because, I mean, the one thing that they both have is the red box, because the British love their traditions. Like the red box has been delivered to the monarch since the 1700s. So in The Crown, you learn about the red box, and Queen Elizabeth has to read the red box, and Prince Philip is like jealous, and he wants to help with the red box, but it's the Queen's deal. Entirely same plot happens in Victoria.
Oh, that's
like
great.
She gets the red box, and then she gets pregnant, and then Albert is using the red box, and he doesn't want to give up the red box, and it really, they do mesh well together, even though they're not produced by the same people. The Crown, of course, more modern. And especially in this most recent season, starting to deal with things that feel very familiar, things that will bear on Diana when she comes along. Television and the paparazzi and scandal and things that hit close to home. And of course, you're dealing with someone who's still alive when you're talking about The Crown. A little more distant, a little more separated from them, and definitely fantasy is Outlander on Starz, which I knew I'd kind of like because it involves time travel, but it's a romance, and I wasn't sure, how much it would really grab me. My wife got into it. I got sucked into it too, and it's just fantastic. It's a good period piece about Scotland in its time of trying to, after the Treaty of Union of Scotland and the UK, certain elements wanting to break free again. And yet you have this time traveler woman who falls in love with one of them, and she's from the 1940s. So that's crazy. They go to Paris. They go to the Jamaica. It's all over the world, and it's really well shot, well told, and it's Ronald D. Moore, the guy who did Battlestar Galactica, is the executive producer of this. So as you can expect, it's well done.
Is it anywhere in the neighborhood of Battlestar Galactica as far as like, is it going to grab me by the crotch and start punching, or like?
Well, it's going to grab you by the crotch as far as there's a lot of sexy scenes.
Okay.
But that's in a good way. There definitely are some parts where, I mean, they're basing this on Diana Gabaldon's novel, so there's less he can do with it, because they want to be faithful to that. But there certainly are things where you're like, okay, it's got to go this way. But then they very avowedly is like, yeah, but history says it goes that way. And they do that magic trick of convincing you, like, even though the Battle of Culloden was lost, maybe it could be won this time. Although we know it was lost, and that's really fun.
Very cool.
Yeah, awesome. Brian, do you have any more?
Yeah. I'll do one more twofer. This will be my last twofer.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to start doing twofers.
No, you're gonna get a whole runway.
Gonna get a little while.
Dude, let's talk comedy. Let's talk about my two favorite television anythings with comedy of the year.
Sure.
Future Man on Hulu, but more importantly, and yes, we've talked about Future Man,
a late entry this year.
Fairly recent talking about it on the show. It's very, very funny. It only gets better and better. Don't think of it as a science fiction show with some funny. It's a comedy that happens to be science fiction themed, and they play with a lot of those themes. But all of that is dwarfed by the supermassive black hole of my comedy love, which is Michael Bolton's big, sexy Valentine's Day special on Netflix. If you trust me, turn it on right now. Stop listening and just enjoy.
Just wait until the show's over.
Yeah, let us finish the playback on your podcast app.
All right.
But it's great from start to finish. It is joke.
Yeah, and good jokes. Good jokes.
Even the basic conceit, like normally we wouldn't consider the basic conceit of any piece of media to be a spoiler, but it's a it's a
but
huge,
even
great joke.
knowing why Michael Bolton is hosting a big Valentine's Day spectacular will take something away from your experience of watching the show.
Right. Man, yeah, I've watched that a couple of times this year, and it's really good. It's a mix, and it's set up like a television special. You've got skits and songs, performances. You've got VTR packages, and then you get a turn a little bit.
Yep, where it goes narrative.
And it's great. It's really
you watched it, Tom, right?
Yeah, I've seen it now.
Okay.
I wish I enjoyed it as much as you guys.
Oh no!
That's fine.
You just haven't watched it with me in the room cackling. That's what you need.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I need to do that. Okay. I'll fly out.
It almost is like a Tim and Eric, and granted Tim and Eric are not involved in it, but it is almost like a Tim and Eric sort of thing where it's like it's wacky in that it's non sequiturs in the context of this one recurring theme.
Sure.
But it's still great.
If you like the Lonely Island sketch comedy,
right.
It's a bunch of sketches written by the Lonely Island.
And it's a collaboration between Lonely Island and
Comedy Bang Bang. Yep.
Which is like two powerhouses. But if neither of those are your thing, then you probably are not going to be into it. If we're talking, let me give two family picks, because I did not expect to. I really didn't expect to fall in love with either of these shows this past year, and I gave them a try just to see, right? Just to see if they could, if my cold heart could be warmed. And then it was. I am talking about both of these are Netflix originals. The revival of One Day at a Time and Atypical. One Day at a Time is a multi-camera sitcom. I think it even does have a laugh track, but it is a reboot of the sitcom from the 80s.
Late 70s actually.
Late 70s of a single mother who is back from the war as an army medic. She's back from the Iraq War in this case, and she's got her two kids and her mother living with her and trying to make life.
Do they do the laugh track? Because that was the weird part about One Day at a Time, is it was ostensibly a sitcom, and yet it dealt with really dark matter with people laughing in the background.
I think it does have a laugh track, but it's the sort of thing where I really don't like laugh tracks, and I've tried to give them a shot with like The Ranch or Disjointed, both of Netflix multi-camera sitcoms, and have not enjoyed that at all. But something about One Day at a Time, I don't know if it's because I did grow up watching sitcoms with laugh tracks, but I think it finds a good balance between. But with a sitcom like this, if this was on NBC, you couldn't really serialize anything. You couldn't have long running plots. You couldn't have any threads that were carrying over more than a few episodes, because it is
going to go into syndication at some point and be aired out of order. And
right.
Yeah.
Which is something Netflix shows are able to take whole advantage of. And what that leads to is greater characterization of the kids and of the mom. And I think it has a very light initial feel because it has a laugh track and because it looks very much like a sitcom, but it also ends up dealing with PTSD, LGBT issues, just growing up as a kid. And it's another show that takes place in a Hispanic household, which also just, I don't know, ticks a really nice box for me. And then Atypical is a single camera family dramedy on Netflix about a family that has a person with autism in it, a teenager with autism, and it follows sort of the whole family. It's not just from the teenager side. It's also, you get to see how his sister lives and handles it, how the mother, who is, overworked and trying her best, but is going to all the meetings and is learning about it, and then the father, who is like trying to get into it and learning all about the communities around it, but also realizing he's kind of out of touch and is trying to learn about autism, but is sort of bumping up against people who know a lot and know good decorum and stuff. It is there. I think there are very real criticisms of it. As it's a piece of media with someone who is high functioning autistic. It shows. I think that there are real criticisms, but I think it's also something that is eye-opening and really touching. And I think One Day at a Time is coming back in like a month or so with the new season, and I think Atypical got renewed also. So
awesome.
I think both of those are really great to check out on Netflix.
I'm really glad to hear that. I mean, both those shows are amazing, but One Day at a Time particularly, I went in with the wrong expectation. I was a big fan of the original series. The original series. It sounds like it's Star Trek.
Yeah.
But you're right.
But I was a big fan of One Day at a Time as a kid. And I loved the characters. And when I went in, I was like, oh, I don't know any of these people. And I jumped right back out. And so I think resetting expectations and saying, don't expect to see Schneider. Okay, this is not that One Day at a Time, but it's really good. Makes me want to go back in and jump in again and see if like, okay, maybe the things I liked about One Day at a Time are still there. I just need to give it a chance.
And it has a Schneider sort of, I think his name is Schneider in the reboot, but my guess is that it is a modern recontextualizing of that story. So it would be probably dramatically different, but I think it's really good, and I think both of those are good family picks if you're looking for something for everyone to enjoy.
My favorite family pick is Fargo. What
yes.
family doesn't like to sit around and investigate a murder? I'm throwing it out there because it's the bottom of my list, not because it's bad, because it's season 3.
But they're 3 for 3, man. All 3 seasons were good in their own strange ways.
Watch it. Higher up on my list is The Expanse.
Yes.
It's the best science fiction television show that is currently being produced.
Full stop. No question about it.
Yeah, it is compelling with compelling characters, and being a fan of the books, I know it's just gonna keep getting better. I did an episode of Text Message with Nate Langston and Ian Morris this weekend. That was a special about Contact, the book by Carl Sagan. And I mentioned, they asked like, what other stories are good about alien contact? And I'm like, The Expanse. Like, people forget. Really, at base, this is an alien contact story.
It's a first contact story. Yeah.
Yeah. The best part about it is you forget that, because there's so much else going on. There's so much political drama and there's so much good science as part of it that you forget, like, at base, this is probably one of the more believable first contact scenarios that you'd ever see.
Absolutely. I guess that's...
Do you have more, Brian?
Yeah, no,
if you're out, because I
well,
no.
Preacher season 2. Somebody was feeling bad that they didn't like it as much as Preacher season 1. I think the novelty is worn off, but I like the depth that they're adding to Preacher. It continues to do gross out and funny and all the bizarre stuff. And then another stay the course, still good and churning out the hits is Rick and Morty. Season 3 was, as we mentioned on Spoiler in Time, a lot more heterogeneous. It had higher highs and lower lows, but on balance was as good as the previous seasons.
Yeah, I'll second both of those.
I'll say, okay, this is if we're going for like underrated, this actually came out 2016. I think it came out after we recorded the Killies or right around that time, and I missed it. But it's the OA. Did you guys get any?
I remember you pitching it to us.
Yeah, we talked a lot about it on the show and how it was controversial with the suicide scene.
That's right. The found footage of the chick jumping off the bridge.
Oh, yes, that's right. That was a news article we reported on in Cordkillers, and it ends in a rather controversial, especially for the time, scene that takes place in a school. The OA is not perfect. It is hard to describe it as any one thing, but I think the easiest would be a supernatural thriller, or a thriller with supernatural elements. You have a woman who who is found having jumped off of a bridge and is taken back into the custody of her parents, and is trying to finds a group of unlikely people to share her life story and her life's objective with. And between seeing all of their own personal conflicts and how her story and strength sort of inspire them to be more fulfilled people, you also end up with a supernatural element of them actively helping her with her goal. And it's weird, and I don't know that it's going to pay out, but the very end of the first season throws a lot, throws a monkey wrench into a lot of what you believe to very good effect, and I think that's a really solid. I don't know. It's a show that I watched all of and couldn't understand why. It felt like I was along for a ride that I didn't know what I was going for. And I think if you're
there was something hypnotic about it, and it wasn't clear to you what it was.
Yeah, there are some weird plot hole shaped parts of the story. Mm-hmm. I don't even know that they're plot holes yet because they may get filled with the part 2 that is supposed to come out this next year. But it is a very interesting mystery about what really happened to this young woman and in her childhood and in her life, and what she and the people she trusts are capable of doing. We don't know, but it seems like it could go either way. And I think that's a good hallmark of a mystery, is that it could be true, or it could all be BS. So that's the OA.
Interesting.
Well, I will throw out an honorable mention of mine that I see on your list here, which is The Good Place.
Yes.
A show that I gave up on after episode 2 or 3, and then you, among many others, were like, no, keep with it. And so I went back and watched it on Netflix, and then went to Hulu and watched season 2. What they did with that is both funny and inventive and really interesting.
Well, I think that first season alone is enough. Like, I think you could look at season 1 alone and be like, this is an incredible story.
Yeah.
I think season 2, by virtue of what happens in season 1, is a totally different thing, which I think works. But I also like, I don't even know if the current season wrapped up yet.
No, there's still more episodes to come.
Yeah. But we could be, it could have an equally strong payoff, or maybe not. But it's a very unique experience that you wouldn't find in a single camera comedy on any other show.
With Ted Danson. Yeah. To subvert your expectations, folks. Watch a Ted Danson comedy and don't think you know what you'll expect.
Holy cow, I'm just realizing on your list, Bryce, you have Mr. Robot, and Mr. Robot didn't make either of our lists. How crazy is that? I mean,
it definitely made my list, my long list, right? It just didn't make it into my 10.
Yeah.
And, that's no disrespect to Mr. Robot. There's a lot of good shows out there, but part of the problem is a lot of times when you get into a season 2 or a season 3, it's really harder for me to say like, oh yeah, this is a thing that I really couldn't miss every week. Mm-hmm. And that's actually one of the reasons I put Game of Thrones at the top, is because, for a couple seasons there, it was definitely on my list, but it wouldn't have been at the top of my list.
But
and this year was the first year it really came back strong of like, I will absolutely have to watch it.
Yeah. And by the way, it occurs to me that some people might be like, wait, they're only supposed to have 10? Brian said like 20.
I think it's impossible for anybody to keep count at this point.
Okay, good. Well, a lot of the ones I mentioned, just have people know I pinched from the shared pool because there was a lot of them that were duplicated there.
Mr. Robot's incredible, and it goes from... I think what it makes this season of Mr. Robot really great is that it is seeing a lot of things in motion, and maybe has a little less chaff than season 2 did. And I think if there's a time to get into Mr. Robot, now that season 3 has aired, now is a really good time for Mr. Robot. I do have one more pick. I'm really surprised. No?
No,
right,
go.
One more. I'm really surprised it didn't make anybody's list, because I think you guys watched this and liked it, but it's Glow.
I haven't finished Glow.
I only saw like 3 episodes.
That was one I was trying to get Bonnie to watch with me, and I ended up not. It didn't take with her.
Eileen watched it and loved it.
Yeah,
but I only saw like a couple of them.
It's great. I think it runs into a problem in that it is set up like an ensemble dramedy, like Orange Is the New Black, but it has about half the time in a season because it's only half-hour episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, not everyone gets enough screen time to feel iconic yet. But the way that it's going and the momentum that it has, I think it's super, super strong. especially going into another season. Do you guys want to do Abandies really quick, shows that you stopped watching?
Yeah. No.
I was surprised by it, but I American Gods still on my list to get back to watching. But
you didn't finish it.
No, I didn't watch past the third episode.
Wow.
It didn't make my list.
Sure.
Yeah,
Not even just my short list. Like, it didn't make my list.
Okay,
like,
so I'm not a bad person for having it on my let it go.
I want to like it more than I did.
Yeah.
My Abandie goes to Once Upon a Time, a show I've been watching for 6-7 seasons and loved. And they essentially like fired all the actors and tried to reboot the story, and just didn't work for me.
I have a few Abandies, and some of them are very sad because I think a lot of them were on my list or potentially were on my list last year. They include Terrace House, Aloha State. That was a very bright and very short-lived flame with that Japanese reality show.
Yep.
Empire on Fox.
Yeah, you were in love with the ridiculous over-the-top soap opera.
I loved it. It's just the rearranging chairs issue of like, okay, how many ways can we get these same people to do the same conflicts over and over again with different dynamics? That's super tough. How to Get Away with Murder ended one of their seasons with a very it might have been a mid-season thing with a very
Shonda Rhimes.
Yeah, sorry Shonda, this is year 2 of another Shonda drop because I dropped Scandal last year. There was a big revelation and it felt very dumb, and I just I don't care anymore. I don't know how many times we get killing people and have to get out of it. Lastly, The Prophet. The Prophet's back, and
you don't even know. Like, I was thinking about
go watch the current season of The Prophet because you can tell that a different company, a different team has taken over The Prophet.
Okay, because last season of The Prophet was bad.
Not to mention, I have no idea when The Prophet is in season anymore. I don't know.
They're constantly changing that.
It's funny side note. Yeah, somebody who's never watched The Prophet. I was actually on Hulu Live switching channels, and The Prophet was on one of the channels when I went into live, and I switched, and then suddenly Apple TV's like, "Oh, you watched The Prophet? Let me tell you when the newest episode is up."
And you're like,
TV,
"Oh,
and it
no.
keeps showing up,
no.
and I keep trying to tell it, like, "No, I actually don't watch that."
By the way, The Prophet is a good show.
It's a decent show.
Yeah,
it's like. It is a cool conceit, and I think you can buy into the idea of the reality of the conceit. But I never know when it's on. It's kind of junky, and you can tell when there are like really structured preset moments.
Right, and this
If you
last
get Hulu
season.
Live, it'll remind you that it's there all the time.
The last season had a lot of those forced crossover things that felt like, Trump promoting his own brand of coffee on his own whatever thing.
So like,
and The Prophet was always better than that. I felt like, and it sort of felt grody, and I didn't like it.
And what's super tough is it's following one guy in like a kitchen nightmare style thing, but if it's successful, that's his portfolio. That's in his portfolio, so he can. So like. This last season came back with like a best of or like a follow-up report, and it was a lot of that of like, I teamed these companies up together because of course I would, because I'm a smart businessman.
Right. But you're like, well, that's not good reality television. It's like, why not just show the board meeting that you had last Tuesday?
It's just it's a little weird, and it was just enough to make me.
And I got disappointed. I caught some very forced, spontaneous moments that really, like by and large, the show's been great, but the last season just felt a little pro wrestling fakey to me, and I didn't care.
Maybe
for
this is a half Abandy because I know it's clearly a different production team. All the credits are way different. Compared to last season.
Oh, did they ever fix the terrible green screening? I think that's what that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Was like, if you can't even be bothered to do a decent green screen on this, then it's like, I'm out. I'm out. If you're not going to show up, then I'm not going to show up.
It's pretty good. Anyway.
Okay,
maybe half a band.
I'll give it another try.
Tom has got to get off of the air. He's been online for 13 hours this day.
Yeah.
No, but it's Christmas time, so I don't care.
It's a Christmas miracle. It's still going.
Yeah. Seriously though, thank you to everybody who has kept this crazy show going for 4 years now.
Holy cow! 200 episodes.
201 is the Killies.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a trip, man! You guys have really transformed our lives so much for the better. We've enjoyed hanging out with you. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed hanging out with us. In fact, if you guys, I'd love to hear the stories of people who came to Cordkillers long after we launched, and because as far as we knew, we were an escape hatch, and we pulled the lever and escaped from a network, and we're like, oh, I guess it's all us. But I'm sure we've taken on a lot of new members of our crew.
Yeah, so cordkillers@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Even if it's just say happy holidays or happy new year, and we will see you in 2018.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.